Welcome to the bold analysis. The deliberate scheme by cabinet secretaries to skip the parliamentary summons should be a awakening call to the National Assembly and the Senate, despite the fact that this has largely to be blamed on the majority, on the government side, members of parliament, that actually made the National Assembly lose its autonomy. And this is something that is very alarming because William Ruto himself is the person that initiated it. So in this podcast, I want us to look at the behind the scene and the vicious fight within the Kenya Kwanza administration, why the cabinet is hiding from parliamentarians. Welcome to the bold analysis, and kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell and like our video. I want to promise you that we are going to have another interesting show in this podcast. Why is it that suddenly the members of William Ruto's, the members of the executive are absconding summons from the parliamentarians?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we hear you. But from your communication, the Prime Cabinet Secretary has alerted Senate this morning. The Cabinet Secretary at the National Treasury has alerted the Senate this morning. Mr. Speaker, it should also occur to this House that this is not the first time the Prime Cabinet Secretary is failing to appear before this House. And, Mr. Speaker, if this does not imply attitude, then what does? The Cabinet Secretary has an attitude about this House. He thinks, Mr. Speaker, that the House is waiting for him so that this morning it discovers that he's not around.
That was Edwin Sifuna and Bon Khalwale in Senate today. And remember, this was initiated by William Ruto himself. And he wrote a letter to the two speakers of the Senate, that of the Senate, Amason Kingi, and Moses Wetangula of the National Assembly, for the standing orders to be amended so that members of his cabinet can be slated to appear in parliament to answer queries about government. And according to him, this was going to boost the transparency and make the government accountable. And the other objective of that was to ensure that members of cabinet can explain to Kenyans what their respective ministries are doing to respond to the needs of the people. So it was to serve those two objectives. The first objective is to ensure that they answer the questions on what they're doing in the ministries, and also they market, or it's also a platform to market what Kenya Kwanza is getting right or wrong. Njuguna Ndung'u and Musalia Mudavadi and Chirchir are the latest one to skip those summons. Last week on Wednesday, something happened that Anjeri and Chirchir, the energy CS, Davis Chirchir, was supposed to appear in the National Assembly to answer queries on the GTG and the Anjeri scandal. So Anne absconded those summons, I think for some obvious reasons. Maybe she was subdued. Chirchir also didn't appear, and Ndung'u. This week on Wednesday, Ndung'u and Chirchir were supposed to appear, and again they didn't appear. And Mudavadi. So Mudavadi and Chirchir allegedly flew to Dubai to attend the COP27 summit that had just started. But Chirchir could find time today, but the Treasury CS, Ndung'u, was in Spice FM in the morning, and instead of responding to the queries of G2G in Parliament, he decided to bash Raila while in Spice FM, as you can watch here.
We have interventions that we have made. Let me talk about the Hasra Fund, for example, which we had to fight over so many.
You're still fighting?
Yeah, we are still fighting. G2G, oil marketing. We have been fighting. It is still fought. We have been fought. I'm even been accused of taking deals at my level and age and where I've come from on my own. I have no time to do deals. And somebody says that in public, and we don't go to court because, you know, again, we don't want to go to court because you don't want to create so many. The bottom line is that we are being fought even when we bring interventions. So I told my sister here that in times of crisis, you use interventions that are possible and policy changes that are feasible, okay, in times of crisis, so that you ride over crisis. The Hasra Fund is one intervention to lift those people at the pyramid and stop the Furiza. Not because the Furiza is bad, but of course it was putting them into a bondage and of course Shyrox and all that. We wanted them to move away from that bondage. It is working. Tomorrow, today. Today is 29.
Yes. Tomorrow is 30th.
30th. No, 29th is today. It's a celebration of 1 year of Hasra Fund because we launched it. And they were going to give exam. In fact, I saw the data. I was very excited. I also borrow from Hasra Fund, not because I need the money, but just to see that it is working, because it's an intervention.
What's your limit?
We are in public. I can't say it.
Eric's is 500. Mine is 500.
Yeah? No. I have. It has been doubled several times because I keep borrowing. I borrow this week and I pay the next week. I'm having savings.
That's what.
Now, why? Now, let me emphasize that point. During crisis, what you do is to introduce policy change and also formidable interventions that help you ride over the crisis.
And that is what I was talking about. That for the members of cabinet, they rather respond to the queries in the media instead of responding to parliamentarians, facing the parliamentarians, which is the oversight house. They rather make statements in media or in political rallies or in the Sunday events instead of facing parliamentarians. And quite a number of them have been cagey. You'll understand that the last time Murkomen appeared in the Senate, he really struggled to answer queries on what his minister was doing. And that summon by Murkomen, I think, came hot in the heels of the leaking roofs from JKA. And Murkomen could not even really struggled to answer what his ministry is doing. And this is also coming because Ndungu and Kamau Thuge, who is the head of the governor of Central Bank, have been struggling to explain to Kenyans about the shilling. But look at this expose by Chirchir on Murkomen.
He has visited China severally. And you heard at the floor of the house defending Chinese contractors. Where will the hustler contractors who voted for us go if you are giving them contract? Because he received a bribe, and I am daring him to come clean on the allegation of receiving $100 million from China when he visited in the month of between June and October. I want him to come out and tell the country. Because every time when he came to insult me in the funeral, he defended the Chinese contractor. Who will defend Kenyans who are contractors? Or does it mean Kenyans, we don't have capacity of doing roads? Even slashing and clogging drainages, do we need Chinese to come and slash? Where will our young people who do not have jobs go? So I want to dare him to tell the country what agreement did they agree on allegations of receiving $100 million from China, where he was paid an affront of $50 million. And we have all the facts. We have the flight manifest. We know where the money is in Dubai. It is that some of us are just keeping what we call decency, but it has reached a time that the country must know.
That is telling you, I played that clip to tell you that there is already some bad blood cropping between parliamentarians or within the legislative arm of government and the executive. And we are going to explain more on that. In fact, Njuguna Ndungu's cabinet portfolio is one of the most sensitive and very important as far as this economy is concerned. Many questions about the falling shilling, many questions about inflation, the questions about G2G can well be answered by the Treasury CS. So it is not, remember, it is not something that, it is not usual. You know that these cabinet members are just doing it intentionally. Of course, number one, they know very well that Parliament is under Ruto's arms and they cannot do anything. I saw parliamentarians complaining that it is high time they now start sanctioning some of those cabinet members to appear in the two houses. Now, the Treasury CS has a very good statements when he's speaking in public somewhere. This was, I bumped on this video. This was the time he was speaking in, during William Ruto's State of the Nation address. He spoke.
Inflation has declined from June 2022 from 9.3% to June 2023. It came down and it's now climbing slowly back to the range, the policy range. In August, it came down to 6.7. In September, it came down to 6.8 and slightly to 6.9. So if you look at it, it has flattened. But what is pushing those small blips? It is actually fuel and food. The way we look at inflation is that if inflation is driven by core factors, structural, because the basket of goods has so many components, then we say that it will remain elevated. We are going to continue tightening monetary policy when the need arises, just because we want to make sure that even though it is a supply side problem, when supply comes back to the market, we do not have a plateau of high prices. So in a sense, what we're really saying is that take all measures to bring supplies back to the market. Let's not say that taxes, there are no taxes on food. The only tax that everybody is talking about is fuel, which we were trying to remove the tax credit that was benefiting that industry, not the taxpayers or even the economy. There is nowhere you can solve financial crisis with taxation. What we have is a liquidity crisis. Where is the liquidity crisis coming from? First, we are having to pay very heavy maturities of short-term debt. If you look at the last 2 years before this government took over, the borrowing was only with short-term paper. Then if you look at short-term paper of 91, 182 days, 365 days, the maturity starts hitting you very, very hard. From November last year to November this year, we are still running very, very fast to remain on the same position. So we are being hit by heavy maturities. So it's not finance. It is actually a liquidity crisis. Now, the biggest problem is that it's not a solvency crisis. If it was finance, you could say there is a solvency crisis.
But, you know, but when it comes to facing the parliament, that is where they draw the line. And I think for better part of the day, I get some, of course I talked to some few people that, some parliament journalists, about the proceedings and what exactly is happening behind the scenes. And quite a number were saying, and the MPs were actually murmuring, that they're a bit tongue-tied on this issue of cabinet members absconding, because despite the fact that they've come out publicly to call out members of the cabinet, and even William Ruto in close engagements with the MPs have been insisting that they put the cabinet on toes so that they ensure that everything is laid bare. But remember, William Ruto, who is the head of government, does not entertain the fact that the public debt, the debt within the system is actually laid bare. So what have happened is very deliberate. Remember, as we talk now, fertilizer, there is a scandal in terms of, are we really selling subsidized fertilizer or fertilizer that was donated? That question is yet to be answered. G2G is a problem. It has failed to address the target that was set, and the cost of fuel still remains high. Uko kwa the Ministry of Energy, still there is a problem of the electricity, the tariffs, and how the tokens are fluctuating. Those ones deserve answers. As we talk now, there is another probe going on the edible oil. So many things. Remember the Ann Jerry's, you know, that one for Ann Jerry is also there. So there's so many questions that maybe Kenyans need an answer. And the platform, William Ruto himself initiated this, that they should appear. So the MPs are also murmuring that perhaps their absenteeism from the legislative, from the MPs, is well known by William Ruto himself, and he's silent. Because again, he's also the person that can crack the whip. So why are they hiding from Parliament? I want to explain that in this podcast, and before I explain that, I want to take this moment to remind you. I know that we have a problem of flooding, and no one knows. But of course, if you stay in a place with a history of flooding, you know that you are at the risk. It's a low-lying ground, and you're at the risk of flooding. Kindly, this is creating an awareness. We're just creating this awareness that you can consider moving to higher raised grounds. And even if you know that you have a relative back home, and your relative, you know where he stays, has a history of flooding, you never know. We are really experiencing unpredicted heavy downpour. And I'm using unpredicted because all the predictions did not fall within the space. There have been a lot of discussions about who predicted it right or wrong. Kindly move to raised ground. Back to our politics. Why cabinet members don't want to appear in Parliament? The first thing here is Azimio dossiers leaking from government is a ticking time bomb. Did you listen to Sifuna saying that I was prepared with questions? And even the day I was prepared with questions to answer. And that tells you that, for example, if Chirchir is to appear in Parliament or anywhere, remember, how is he going to answer some of those questions about Anjeri and the G2G? So I think even government is taking a very strategic retreat, that after knowing that perhaps the opposition side is well loaded with the dossiers that can really, with the dossiers that can expose government, they're really pushing things to make sure that there is a bit of that retreat. Remember, sometimes I've always realized that when members of state officials appear in public unprepared, they normally have the worst experience. In fact, they find themselves making very grave mistakes and having speech flows, even exposing things that you wouldn't even expect they would do that. What normally brings that is that they have been cornered. And William Ruto has realized that in the Parliament is where the Azimio seems to have changed tact. And they are strong, or rather the opposition wing is very strong in Parliament, pushing. And that is why some of these fellows are not appearing. And just to get you well, I want to play for you this video by when Nani was removed from Parliament, when Chirchir was removed from Parliament. There is a day that Murkomen was appearing in Parliament. And do you know that Speaker, despite the fact that, okay, there is a clause that allows, I think there is standing order that allows standing or rather ranking members to be given priority. And sometimes why you see that some new members don't often get a chance to speak in Parliament more often is because there is a standing order that allows ranking members to be given a priority. And when Murkomen was there, Chirchir was not given even a second to ask Murkomen questions. And it was very deliberate until he protested and he was kicked out. In fact, even that kicking out, according to me, it was well choreographed. They knew very well that he was going to lose his temper, and they just wanted to ensure that the questions he wanted to ask could be blocked. Watch that video.
You cannot raise point of order. Let him finish the question, then you can rise.
Mr. Speaker, on the question of Tala Oldonyo Sabuk Road, It's an ongoing contract, Mr. Speaker, that connects Tala to Thika Road. It is 40% complete. This connects Machakos to the Karisa Road, and it was awarded in 2020 for a contract sum of 1.4.
Yes, one moment, please. Chirchir, at this point, I will have to find you out of order. And I'm not trying. This is not a funeral. Okay. Senator Chirchir, I've actually shown you the dashboard.
Why don't you give him?
So, Senator Chirchir, at this point, I will have to ask you to leave the house. Please leave the house. Please leave the house so that we can continue with the business. Senator Chirchir, we've heard you. Please leave the house. CS, my apology, please proceed.
So this is what I'm talking about. That they know very well that there is a lot of bombshell. Now what's going on, the dossiers are not just on the opposition side. Even within the government, there are people that are releasing dossiers. And they can even feed the other pro-government leaders, legislators. So that's one of the challenges. Number two, I think Ruto is getting a little bit scared because the leadership has failed to offer tangible solutions. And straightforward, I just want to explain this using Chirchir. Whenever the energy CS comes in public, he was heckled in Bomet, allegedly about some electricity donation that maybe installation that had not been conducted in the area. But what do you think are the questions that MPs are going to ask Chirchir about the cost of fuel? Now, the government doesn't have a solution. They don't have an answer as to what extent will the cost of fuel go down, and will it even go down in the first place? So the answers the public is demanding are not forthcoming. For example, when Nyuguna Ndungu appears in Senate or even National Assembly, I want to ensure, I know very well that one of the questions that will not lack is, why is our shilling depreciating? I even watched that interview at Spice FM. He could not explain. And there have been, two sides of that explanation. While someone blames the previous administration, the political class blames Uhuru Kenyatta for it. The Treasury CS has a different word with what the chairman, the governor of CBK says. So those questions they do not have those answers. And in fact, that is why they cannot risk making those appearances. Number two, there is a very hot fallout between UDA legislative wing and the executive. And the tragedy that has befallen the country is that that fallout has not been brought about by pursuing interest, or rather in pursuit of the interest of Kenyans. That fallout has come out simply because the interests of individuals have not been served. And I want to explain this way. The reason why some of the MPs, and this is not just on the opposition, the reason why some of the MPs and in the National Assembly, the senators, do not meet eye to eye with some members of the cabinet is because maybe fellows are making deals. They are cutting huge deals and they are eating alone. I don't know how I want to explain that. What I'm saying is this. Members of cabinets are very influential, high portfolio, and cross-cutting deals in different sectors. So far, the legislative wing in Kenya Kwanza has threatened to impeach Murkomen, has threatened to impeach Moses Kuria has threatened to impeach Florence Bore. Also, you know, it started with her at one point. She was also absconding those summons. Has also threatened to impeach Ababu Namwamba. I remember, and Ababu Namwamba, it had to take the intervention of William Ruto himself to silence Chirchir so that they will leave Ababu Namwamba to serve. So that is what I am saying. That clearly, and this one, I know it will reach a boiling point where some heads will have to roll. There are some fellows that don't just meet, and because of that bad blood between the executive and legislature, some MPs are deliberately not attending, and Parliament will not do anything. Let's not, I don't want to say, make any promise that I don't know someone they can sanction. Forget about it. William Ruto has already captured the Parliament. And that was seen during the finance bill. It was forced down the people's throat whether you like it or not. And so on this one, MPs cannot lie to come up with a solution. Thank you guys. Let's meet in the next. As I finish, I want you to think about it. I decided not even to delve on the cracks within Azimio. But I've just realized that when Raila Odinga and the Azimio team were giving a response to the NADCO committee, Martha Karua, Eugene Wamalwa, and Jeremiah Kioni were absent. I don't know what you think. For me, I have always said and I've always insisted that Azimio cannot hold to the next election. If it can dissolve and another political formation comes up that can be developed, you know, early. You know, Azimio was formed a year to election and they didn't make, and in fact, with the other people leaving it, I think it lacked the mojo. And eyes are on the ball. My focus, probably, and according to me, and that's why our podcast is heading, is about William Ruto and the cost of living and the governance flows. That's what I want to talk to. About the political sideshows, I don't think I want to delve into those political sideshows. I want to focus on governance issues. That is the reveal and review, the tagline in the bold analysis. Thank you, guys.